Welcome everybody to Big Hammer Wines Films. This is Greg Martellotto, and I'm so pleased to have Eduardo Chadwick from Chile here at Vinexpo in Bordeaux. One of the great things about these events is to bring together people from all over the world. And Eduardo, you are one of the highlights in Chile. I've had the good fortune of visiting Eraceres, and an amazing property, and you're producing some fantastic wines. And I'm so pleased to have you share some of your story today with us. Thank you.
My pleasure, Greg. Thank you very much for inviting me to this chat.
So, one of the great things is you've been an ambassador for not just your wines, but for Chile in general. And I think that story can start with the Berlin tasting that you organized in 2004 at the Ritz-Carlton, famous for doing a blind tasting with several top first growth chateaus and your wines, and the result was very surprising. Tell us about that.
Well, I think Chile, I've been convinced since the very beginning that Chile has the potential to produce great wines, world-class wines, as good as the best of the key regions of the world, the best of the Napa Valley, Bordeaux, and however, it has been kept a little bit as a secret because Chile is far away, so we've had little exposure internationally, and we started exporting our wines only in the 1990s. So this was no recognition for Chilean wines, and it was difficult to get the critics to really understand our terroir. So in the early days, there was this perception that Chilean wines were offering good quality, but only at affordable prices. So to confront that first impression, I had the idea of doing this blind tasting, very similar to what happened in the Judgment of Paris back in
1976.
To benchmark our wines, to present our wines, top wines, Don Maximiano, Seña, and Viñedo Chadwick, in the company of the best wines of Bordeaux and Tuscany, which already had the recognition and the fame. And this was a masterclass to talk about terroir, climate, and what will make our wines unique and different. And I had in my mind my hope that one of my wines would be in the top 5 to claim, as I wanted to say, well, we are in the company of the great wines of the world. Please have a look at Chile with this quality perspective.
And what were the results?
To everyone's surprise, our wines came in first and second place.
Just like in Paris in 76.
Just in Paris.
Yeah.
And third came Lafite, which had been ranked 100 points by Parker.
That's right.
So this was a David against
the
Goliath.
2000 Lafite, by the way. It was the 2000 Lafite.
Was, and the Margaux and Latour 2000. So they were all the best ranked Bordeaux wines at the time. And at first I thought to myself, I did of course a little booklet, and I started sharing this story around the world. But then some friends would tell me, well, this story happened in Berlin, you had the key critics in Europe, right, but to make it relevant, you should come to my market. And the first to convince me was a friend in Brazil, said, you have to come to Brazil, to Sao Paulo. I was scared to death, because if I had to redo this tasting.
Were the results replicable?
It could, yeah, absolutely. You have a different panel, different people. It could have played against it, but I was brave enough, I say, to do it. That was the risk. And in Brazil, Margaux came first, but second came Viñedo Chadwick, third came Seña. So the result was very similar. Then we went to Tokyo, and we had 4 of the top 5. And then this gave me tremendous, I could see that.
And you produced this beautiful book.
Yeah.
And
so I went to New York, and again, we had top Bordeaux, also top Napa. We had Stags Leap and Opus One, and the winner was a Chilean wine, one of our wines, a Kai.
Right.
So we did 22 tastings around the world throughout 10 years, reaching out to somewhere around 1,500 key opinion leaders in every country. We would invite the most knowledgeable wine writers, sommeliers, masters of wine. And the result was very consistent. In more than 90% of the occasions, we had 1 or 2 of our wines in the top 3. So we had a tremendous consistency of preference and of recognition. And this has helped to put Chile on the map, to have the world key critics understand that Chile can offer great wines as good as the best of Napa or other regions of the world.
It's a fantastic story, and congratulations. Yeah, and so you told me in 2010 the tasting in New York was actually hosted and moderated with Steven Spurrier, who was, of course, the organizer of the 1976 Judgment of Paris.
Right, and George Taber, who was the wine writer who who wrote the news about the wines of Napa at the time. He was there. So this was
amazing.
Was repeating this context of really in 1976 Napa Valley was put in the map. This time it was Chile's turn to be put in the map, and I think repeating this tasting, this exercise, has been a tremendous eye-opener for the key critics of the world.
For sure. So let's go back, because you're a fifth generation winemaker, owner, and there's a great long history here with your family from England and Spain, landing in Chile in the 19th century?
In 1870.
Wow.
In 1870 was the beginning. In fact, they landed before. 1840 was Don Maximiano. The Chadwick was also in the 1800s. But the family winery Viñarrasos was founded in 1870. That was Don Maximiano. He founded the beautiful property in the Aconcagua Valley that you visited. It's a beautiful estate. But then for many years, Chile was kept as a secret because, well, international wine trade didn't exist in the 1800s.
For sure.
Similarly, equally with California. So all the wine was drunk in Chile. We had a high per capita, up to 80 liters. And we never had prohibition as you had in the mid 1900s, but we had prohibition to new plantings in 1933.
Really?
Also in Chile. So because the different governments wanted to we had 80 liters per capita of wine drinking. Okay. So different successive governments had imposed taxes.
It was a temperance movement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Not to the extreme that you had with prohibition, but then the whole wine industry went very sleepy, and Chile was a very close economy. We didn't export much. But everything started to happen when we had some Chicago boys coming to Chile in the 1980s, 1970s, and they opened the economy. The Chileans went to study to the US, to Chicago, and Chile embraced free economies, and we started also doing many free trade agreements. Chile is today the country with the highest number of free trade agreements, right, with not only the USA, but also with EU, with China, and most countries in the Far East.
Yeah.
So we were
those of us who produce wine in California are envious of this. You have a competitive advantage.
And the Europeans as well.
Yeah.
So our wines became quickly known in Asia, in Japan, Korea, China, and today, in fact, we have the leadership in many of these countries. In Japan, which is the most knowledgeable and sophisticated Asian market, a bit of the magazine in terms of people go there to see what's going to be the trend in Asia. Chilean wines have the largest market share. We're number one, and France is number two. And most people, when I tell this story, they're very, very surprised, because no one would expect that Chilean wines would be really top notch, top ranked in Japan.
Right. So you're now distributing wines in how many countries around the world?
Well, our top wines like Seña, which was our joint venture with Royal Mondavi, which had also in our mind to really showcase Chile. We started back in 1995. We were distributing through international network of agents, but since 2010 we joined La Place de Bordeaux. And in La Place de Bordeaux we work with the Negociant system,
right,
and they have a wide network of distribution.
Global.
Perhaps 100, more than 100 countries around the world.
Yeah. So were you the first Chilean winery to bring your wines to Bordeaux?
We were the very first, some 10 years ago, from Chile. And at the beginning, there was a bit of it was not easy, because the Place de Bordeaux was a closed club for French wines.
Sure.
And they were debating whether they should embrace or not foreign wines. So I was just at the beginning of this discussion. And of course, some people were not that happy some people claimed, some chateau owners wanted to have the brokers or the Negociant to focus 100% in French wines. But some others were more open, said La Place de Bordeaux should become the best place in the world for top wine, for world-class wines.
Yeah, the same as New York is a financial capital, or Milan's a fashion capital,
I succeeded in having Seña being embraced by La Place de Bordeaux. Now it is a thriving business. More so, they're coming to Napa. You have now Harlem, Promontory, or you have this wine from Hollywood by the Hollywood filmmaker
Francis Ford
Francis
Coppola.
Ford Coppola is joining with his wine.
His Inglenook, Rubicon.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's also several Napa producers coming to sell their wines. In addition, some Italians have come to also Ornellaia and Luce. So today there's they call it Beyond Bordeaux campaign that happens every year in September. They have the En Primeur campaign, which is happening nowadays, and then in September there's the offering of Opus One, Maceto, Sassicaia, Segna.
But it's interesting that whole transition and true globalization of this city and the Grand Place really is only a decade or so old.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's happening.
Let's go back and talk about Segna, because you have an amazing story when you met Robert Mondavi for the first time, and ultimately he was one of the people who said, hey, this looks really a lot like California, and I think this is a place where we could maybe partner on making some great wine. Not unlike you did with Lafite at Opus One, right?
With Mouton, yeah.
With Mouton, right.
Yeah. Yes, this was back in 1991, the first trip by Bob to Chile. He came with Margaret, and I have just the fondest memories of this trip together. I was asked to be the chauffeur. So I was in my sort of mid-30s, and I took him to visit the country. The Aconcagua Valley, Maipo Valley, Colchagua, and by the end of the week, he told me, Eduardo, the terroir that you have reminds me of the Napa Valley in the 1960s, when he wanted to create a wine that could showcase to the world that Napa could produce great wines. I mean, he succeeded tremendously. He became the iconic man, and when he came to Chile, he was already seen as the iconic figure of the wine world. So for us, it was wonderful that he saw this recognition, and he invited me to create a wine, having in mind how he had created Opus One.
Right.
He told me Opus One has been very instrumental in helping me to elevate the image of Napa.
Sure.
So he wanted to create a wine as a joint venture. We created Segna. Segna means signal. So it was a signal to the world that Chile could produce a world-class wine, and this is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Carmenere, which makes it very unique or true. It's a Chilean Bordeaux blend.
Sure.
So it started as we had this commitment of the two families, the alliance of the two families to create a wine of excellence, and we had the signature of Bob Mondavi and my signature. So
now, did the estate already exist? You already had this property?
No.
You acquired a new property?
We started with a project. Tim Mondavi came to work with me, and we took us 3 years to map the whole of the Chilean valleys and to decide where we would locate this vineyard. So we found a beautiful place by the coast, and then we bought it and we planted with a beautiful sustainable design, and this is a beautiful hillside estate protected that we farm under biodynamic principles. His last visit in Chile was this picture that I have here. So we're tasting, and that was the time. That was in 2000 and then in 2004 he retired, and then he passed away in 2008. So I always toast with Segna on the memory of Bob Mondavi. And that's today, as the Mondavi family left, today I wanted to keep it as a handcrafted project, so it's 100% on my family hands.
And this is the 2016 current release?
Yep.
And am I correct, this wine also received?
This wine, well, the 15 received 100 points.
Right, which was the second 100-point score.
Yeah. So, and this is 99 points, and we are
Eduardo, you're really just, you're letting me down here from 100 to 99. Yeah, I mean, we expect 100 all the time now. No, it's true. This is something, we have an online retail store that it's maddening to me, and I'm curious to know what your perspective is, but these wines, a number of top wines in Chile, scoring similarly or higher from the same critics, often in the 95 to 100-point scores, are available at a quarter to a half of the price of the comparable first growth chateaus in Bordeaux, and even, of course, some of the Napa wines. And yet, it seems though consumers are still reluctant or in some way unfamiliar. What's your sense? Do people just haven't had a chance to taste the wines?
I think what happens is that the US has been very US centered, and on California wines, so the people have the history. I mean, they understand California wines, and then when it comes to international wines, I think there's more knowledge on Bordeaux and Tuscany. But Chile somehow continues to be unknown in the fine wine. I think Chilean wines enter into the entry level, and some people think Chile is just a sort of affordable wines. But we've been doing master classes, teaching, and it's been faster. I think the Asians have been faster to educate, or they've been more intrigued because they're learning about wine today, so it was a blank page and they are very eager to learn. Today our wines are thriving in Tokyo, in Hong Kong, in Asia, in London as well, with all the brokers. So our wines are very, very well received around the world. I would say perhaps the weakest understanding today is in the US market.
It's a shame.
But
I hope we can change that.
It's a difficult market to tackle because of the three-tier system and because it has been so concentrated on its own.
Yes.
But it's definitely a market that we are pursuing. We are working now through Laplace, and we would love to. I mean, we are doing activities with Senya, with the key, some of the key brokers or key retailers. But it's absolutely what you say is true. I mean, we have today a thriving success in the key capitals of the world, and the US has been a bit more shy. I mean, it's not, Chilean wines are not understood as well as in other regions of the world. So we need to spend more time, and but also I think it's opening the minds of the wine lovers, and I think. I mean, I'm delighted that you have invited me to share our story, because this story, I mean, most people in the US know about the Judgment of Paris.
Right.
Very few of them know about the Berlin tasting, although we did it for many critics.
Correct.
Kept
So just
a bit like a secret.
Just to clarify, Senya and Viñedo Chadwick, now these wines produced in Chile then travel to Bordeaux, and from Bordeaux they're redistributed globally.
Yeah.
So you don't sell them direct out of Chile.
No.
Just Eraceres is sold direct.
Yeah.
Amazing. What a truly global
because,
business.
I mean, the Negociant, they put containers together with the Grand Cru wines, and they have a very, very capillary distribution system where they can reach different people with a small amount of cases. So these wines, you don't sell them by containers, you sell them by cases.
Right.
To the top accounts in the world.
Right. That's fantastic.
But it's been a fantastic experience. I'm very happy. I have to say that 20 years ago, when I think when we launched Senya, it was also very successful in the US because we were working with the Robert Mondavi team, and they had a distribution network, and Senya was thriving. When I lost distribution because of when the Mondavi family lost control, I had to start rebuilding this distribution with La Place de Bordeaux, and it's taken time, but it's happening. I mean, I see Senya taking back, I mean, regaining this is recognition, but I think it's a story that definitely needs to be told in a stronger way.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, I know that you've been traveling the world, literally, and sharing this story, these great wines, for 20 plus years at least, and what's next? I mean, I feel like it seems like you're bearing the fruit of all of that marketing effort and travel and storytelling. I know that you're still ambitious, but what's next for you?
Yeah. Well, sadly, we don't have Hollywood in Chile, so so the Judgment of Paris had a couple of movies that tell the story.
Right.
Now we're doing a documentary nowadays, Icons of Chile, together with James O. That's going to be shown in China and in Asia and around the world. A documentary of top wines of Chile to tell the story. We are printing some books in different languages. Ideally, we may have in the future, I mean, I'd love to have a Hollywood movie on this success, like Bottle Shock.
Sure.
But what we are doing today is really continuing to educate on.
So the marketing never ends.
It's we have constant vertical tastings to showcase the terroir. We bring people to Chile. Tourism is happening, although we are far away. We have more and more visitors. So it's really it's educating about fine Chilean wines and building this success story. You go to Napa today, and of course it's so different to what it was in the 1960s.
Sure.
I see Chile, it's taken more time because of distances, but today with modern technology, with a social network, with WeChat in China, stories are spread much faster. And I see that we have a real traction happening, led by Asia, Japan, China, and I think this openness of Chile to the world. So, to be honest, I think it's a very nice. It's a point of inflection. We've done many years of working. It's like the workhorse, and then suddenly the world is recognizing. I was very happy that Decanter named me Decanter Man of the Year last year, and not for me, but it's for Chile. It was a recognition for Chile entering this hall of world-class regions. In the past, it was Alexandra Mesolopoulos from Margaux, it was Piero Antinori for discovering, making Super Tuscan wines to be known. It was Aubert de Vilaine for Burgundy, and of course Robert Mondavi.
That's a Hall of Fame.
As the ambassador.
You're in the Hall of Fame now.
Of Napa. So if they invited me as the last Mohican, because now they've changed the name. I'm the last Mohican of the Decanter Man of the Year. It's a recognition to Chile, or to find wines from Chile,
and
entering this club of world-class wines.
That's amazing.
So I think it's finally the 300 the circle being completed.
The one other thing you could think about in terms of your marketing, of course, you're already strong in Asia, is Jean-Luc Tournevin.
Yes.
He was a character in his wine in a manga. In a Japanese manga cartoon.
Yeah, well,
you'd be very good for that. I can see you being a character. You did already?
We had a manga.
I see you already got it covered.
On Eduardo Chadwick by the Kibakashi brothers.
Ah, okay.
In Japan, and they made this competition benchmark between Vinhedo Chadwick and Champagne Salon.
Oh.
And at the end, the outcome was the two were offering great finesse and elegance, and they described Vinhedo Chadwick as a ballerina. Because also, there's a point interesting to share about style. Our style and our geography and our terroir allow us to produce wines that have full ripeness, but also have the freshness and the purity. So our wines are normally with this great balance. We're not aiming at big, powerful wines, which is perhaps the hallmark of Napa. I mean, of course, I love them, but our style is more
blended.
A blend,
maybe more of
a balance. So we normally add 13.5 alcohol with good freshness, good acidity, wines with a great longevity. So that's also very relevant because we offer a unique style that is not Napa, no Bordeaux. It's a Chilean style.
So tell me, what is wine to you? What wine is in your blood? It seems like.
It's been my life. I started pruning and in the vineyards in my early ages, earning some money, harvesting in Europe when I was a student. I did some money literally for my travels. Yeah. And then when I joined in 1983, I was just coming out of university, and I wasn't an expert, so the first thing my father did was to send me to Bordeaux. I studied at the University of Bordeaux Seminology. I'm not a winemaker, but it's been a life of traveling, learning, coming back, and also it's really so, it's been inspiring, and it's been really wonderful to see that many years of hardship, of difficulty. It hasn't been an easy ride. It's been many years, particularly for Chilean producers. It's been a tough 30 years of trying to get our message. Yeah. We have to have many hurdles. but it's been fun. And when you also get to know.
If it had been easy, it would have been worthwhile.
Yeah,
right?
It's true. But you make wonderful friends from around the world. You make friends and at the end, happily, when Chile had the conditions, we could prove it. But also is understanding the philosophy, the people from around the world. So when we introduce our wines in Japan, in China, in Europe, or in the US, I mean, had the opportunity to work, for example, with Bob Mondavi, with Tim, and it was just for me, it was a dream. I was in my 30s, he was in his 80s, he was already an iconic figure. To think that he would like to do a wine in Chile almost to help us, because he was already, I mean, he saw the opportunity, and he was so generous, and so he had this vision, and he knew that what could happen. And here we are today. I mean, with Senya fully established in La Place de Bordeaux and world recognized. But it's been a wonderful sort of product, but it's a way of life. And the people that love wine, and I think we were celebrating last week with some wine writers in London, with Sarah Kemp and many other wine writers, and we were saying that in the room it was just a group of friends that we've been for 30 years getting to know each other, and it's been a wonderful way of life. And I think that's something perhaps quite unique in the wine industry. In every industry, people, I mean, relationships are important, but in wine, I think perhaps even a bit more, because it goes beyond business. You dedicate so much time, and then you work with the land. You want to be sustainable in farming. Then it's a product that brings you from the land to the creating a product, and then all the international marketing and presenting it in the right way. And so it's.
No, it's true, and I think that's part of your great example, and that's a really good depiction of why wine is unique and different. You can distill products, you can make a vodka anytime, you can make a beer every month or two. I mean, this is something that takes time, and there really is a romance and a culture of food and wine, and I find wine people tend to also be appreciative of art and maybe lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the story that we want to tell to people, and say, in this bottle is not only this amazing story of you and Bob Mondavi and how this got started, but also the essence of your family in Chile, and this is your carrying card.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and that's an amazing product because it's so rare.
Absolutely, I think wine is true ambassador to Chile. When we have visitors, we like to really show them Chile, the best of Chile, our traditions, our history. So I mean, this book, for example, I started by showcasing the two Nobel Prize poets.
Neruda and Mistral.
Yeah, that's Chile, Chile's land, and they all were dedicating poems to Chile's land or the wine. And wine is part of our root. It's really part of the history of Chile. So let's dance on the land of Chile. That's the beginning. The wine has been really part of our history.
Yeah.
So I think fine wine is really taking us back. It's a way to showcase this history of Chile.
Yeah.